There's a show. There's a look what I have for you. Oh. Episode 13. Lucky? Maybe? Mayoral candidate Greg Harris on the show today. That'll be interesting. Oh, I want to send us some money. Yeah. That's a good idea. Love that idea. Of course. Oh, what the fuck's that? Hello, friends. Welcome to Boulder County Tonight. My name's Andy Epler. And you may be asking yourself, hey, those pieces of paper seemed a little more, crumpled up than they usually are. Yes, because when I shot this monologue section the first time, something was wrong with the audio, and it was unusable. So I'm shooting this after everyone has left, post-interview here. Just had an interview with Mr. Harris, so now I'm coming back to do the monologue for you freshly here. Probably didn't need to know that. Show business probably wouldn't have mentioned that. But fuck it. It explains my fucking rough vibe. Fuck! I'm telling you what, man. Putting on a TV show is a tricksy gig. All right, so let's see. How do we start the show? Oh, Grandma. Wake up, Grandma. Go to bed. Grandma, go to bed. Put your popcorn away and go to bed. Honey, it's much too late. Much too late for you. What else? I've got my hand mobility increasing all the time. I don't know why. People have been checking in with me, I guess, about my hand. So I'm trying to give updates. I've been doing some therapy. So now here's where we are with this. Oh, pretty important First Amendment hand sign. Let's see. Okay, here's some news. I want to talk about some national level news, and then we're going to kind of drill down into our local politics pretty extensively for the episode. I'm going to be talking about who I'm going to vote for and some of the people that I think would be good votes. Everybody, let me put this out here before I go too far. We don't have any real assholes or whatever running for public office right now. We've gotten to talk to a lot of the people running for city council, and that's been great. The people that we couldn't have on the show either couldn't come on, unavailable, or they maybe were maybe uncomfortable, whatever, sitting next to such a vulgar asshole. And a ficus. So I'm going to talk about that soon. But first, there's some semi-hopeful billionaire news. And I know you think usually when he has good news, it's a trick. I think this is hopeful news. Ready? Here we go. Sometime in 2019 or 2020, Jeff Bezos was giving testimony to Congress. And Congress suspects that he lied to them. And that would be bad news for Jeff. So there's a chance that they might go after him for that and charge him with lying to Congress. What was he lying about? Whatever, look it up yourself. You should look up the news story. It's really interesting. But he did lie to them, and if they convict him, he could be going to jail. When reached for comment, Mr. Bezos was quoted as saying, "Oh, I think I actually left something in outer space. So I'll be right back. It's sort of a weird coincidence that, over the last couple of years when Jeff may have lied to Congress and thought he might get caught doing so, he's like, I think I'd like to move to outer space. I'll tell you, for him, the tax rate is largely the same in outer space because I don't think he pays a fucking dollar. Anyway, whatever, all those billionaires going into outer space. I'm getting to where my real complaint about this is the return trips. You know what I'm saying? If you want to go to outer space, that's fine. But I don't know. maybe like stay there would be a great answer for us as humans. But maybe he lied to the government, so they probably bust his ass. So if you lie to the government, you might be imprisoned. But what happens if you tell the truth about the government? Because there's a news story that answers that question as well. What happens if you tell the truth about the government? In some leaked documents lately, we have discovered that the CIA had a plot to abduct and maybe assassinate Julian Assange. Because he, exposes all their sins or whatever, their wrongdoing in the Iraq War and everywhere all the time. So, of course, they got busted for maybe trying to kill him. Or, as Anderson Cooper reported it, you can hardly blame us. Them, the CIA, not me, Anderson Cooper, hapless news anchor, very innocent man, member of one of the most famously wealthy, secretive families in American history, the Vanderbilts. And also, it is open information that I, Anderson Cooper, did at one time have an internship with the CIA. I'm sure that's nothing now. Completely innocent. You ever seen one of those CIA movies where they're recruiting people and they put them through this big ordeal for fucking spy training camp or whatever? Usually the lead character gets disqualified and pulled out of the program, and all the fellow students are like, oh, main character is not going to end up being in the CIA. What a shame. We will all go on to be in the CIA or whatever. But then an hour later, Al Pacino shows up at the fucking bar and is like, you're still in the CIA, motherfucker. You know how that goes? Well, Anderson Cooper had an internship with the CIA, and I'm sure that he has no affiliation whatsoever anymore. Right? Totally. Because, that would be so weird for the CIA to do something that was sort of weird and underhanded. I don't know, threaten to abduct and murder someone who was totally telling the truth about them. Whatever. I'm sure that that's all hearsay. Anyways, Anderson Cooper, maybe he's in the CIA. Jeff Bezos, possible villain. Jeff Bezos, possible villain. Anderson Cooper, possible CIA asset. Whatever. Just a note? Maybe it's just a note. But he did have that internship with the CIA. That's undeniable. And also, what's also undeniable, if there is such thing as the Illuminati, some of those motherfuckers' last name is Vanderbilt. Just true. That's just true. If the Bushes are in, the Vanderbilts are in. You know what I'm talking about? And so there you go, Anderson Cooper. Interesting character. Maybe not as decent a news anchor as you might think. Who knows? I certainly don't know, and certainly would never openly accuse a news anchor of being a CIA asset, even if it seems like the most logical thing in the world. Whatever. We release it, don't we? We release it. Yeah, because we don't want the fucking CIA to get interested in us. It would be the first time anyone was interested in us. So it might be sort of nice just to feel seen. Let's therapy with that. For now, we'll move on. Yes. We have a great local election happening in Longmont. City council election, there are 2 seats that are open and available, and more than 2 people running, of course. We've talked to a lot of them on this show. We don't have anybody that's just a poisonous motherfucker or anything like that running. So anybody you vote for is, you don't have to feel bad about voting for that person. So with that sort of in view, I want to talk a little bit about who I vote for, some options there for you to consider if you appreciate my opinion about it, and then some of the reasons why I vote, which maybe help you understand who I'm voting for. So For years now, I have been a supporter of Aaron Rodriguez, a friend, a good American, and a young person helping take responsibility and serve our community at the politicking level. He's been on city council for a while. He was mayor pro tem, which is that's like vice mayor. And of course, he's a liberal guy, and has worked with people that disagree with him, and he's gotten shit done for the community. I think he's doing a good job. So I'm going to be voting for my friend Aaron. And then I'm going to vote for another young person that's running, named Talis Salamatian. Good character, new in my life. I haven't hung out with him a whole lot, but enough to sort of get a vibe for him, right? We met him on the show. I like him, and I feel like he's a very business forward person. And I think he and Aaron don't necessarily see eye to eye on all the issues, okay? So I'm not exactly picking my picks based on how many of their policies fit together. I'm picking it based on who I think shares values that I share, and who's going to be thinking a way that I can predict and understand. And I do think that it means a lot to us in this community to start seeing our people in our 30s start taking more responsibility for our community. These guys are invested in our city, and so they're going to be here for the future, very likely. And so they're invested in that way. So that's how my votes will be going. But a third option, I want to give you three options, because what I'm not trying to do is tell you how to vote, right? And if I give you two options, that seems pretty instructional. And I'm really not trying to do that. And another person that I would totally vote for is Shakita, our friend, who came on this show as well. She's great. Shakita Yarborough. She represents a lot of good things about our community and about the kind of person that you want to get into public service. We respect her very much, and she'd be a great vote as well. If you're not trying to go for the 30-something vote like I am, I'm going to be voting that way. But if you don't want to go double millennial, one of those two characters I talked about earlier, plus Shakita, would be a great ticket to vote for as well. And the other people are wonderful as well. But you have to choose, right? And of course, I've written a voter's guide ever since I joined this community. And so I've always publicly endorsed people. So that's who I'm voting for this time, Aaron and Talis. And Shakita, also, great answer. But goddamn, I only have two votes, right? But those are the people that I think represent kind of the wide swath of concerns that I hear from the community. And remember, these people are helping our community and getting involved in a historic crisis time. So whoever we put in the driver's seat, so to speak, during this crisis, they're going to be part of our history. So it is an important thing. This episode, I'll be interviewing someone running for mayor. And of course, we interviewed Tim Waters. And that was a great interview. See previous episodes for that. Today, we're talking to Mr. Greg Harris. We didn't have a chance to have Joan Peck on, but she's also running for mayor. And because I haven't interviewed Mr. Harris yet, as we sit here together, I won't be endorsing specifically anyone for mayor. I think it would be rude to be presumptuous in that way, and whatever. There are good choices for mayor, lots of good folks involved. And maybe I'll write something for the newspaper and talk about how I'm going to vote for mayor. But there's how city council lays. It's a historic time, lots of unique challenges for people in local government right now. Some of it's, of course, completely unpredictable. No one could have, predicted whatever, the pandemic and the quarantine, nobody could have predicted that that was going to happen. So, you know, we're going to have some unpredictable shit happen, but there is some shit we do know is going to work, is going to happen to our folks, and they're going to have to navigate us through it. Immediately, I think of course, recovering our local business scene post-pandemic here. We're not even post-pandemic, we realize, of course. We are still in the midst of it, and I feel like some of us are maybe acting in ways that are elongating this experience longer than it needs to be, but we're not out of it yet. But our business community has been completely fucked by the pandemic, and we need to find ways to rebuild that community. We are a very entrepreneurial town. We have a great art scene that's connected to the entrepreneurial scene. And we've had lots of great success pairing that in the past, but we are going to have to rebound both of those things as we come into this new time. We're also going to have, these city council folks, they're going to have to deal with the housing crisis. Rent is insane in Longmont. Average workers aren't making enough money to live here. They talk about affordable housing and attainable housing. They sure do talk a lot more about attainable housing, which is if you make 80% of the median income to 120%, that's the window that they're trying to provide benefits for with affordable, attainable housing. But of course, somebody that makes $80% of the median income of our area, they make $59,000 or so a year, okay? That's the level at which they're talking about helping folks. And that's whatever, that's a percentage of our community. But we've got a lot of people we were calling heroes all through the quarantine for keeping, like, let's say, the grocery store open. And those people make more like $23,000 or $25,000 maybe a year. So that's a part of the community that's literally working all the hours and cannot afford to live here. Some people must think, of course, that people are going to commute from nearby communities to work at our grocery stores. That's not a thing. That's a real problem that we're going to deal with. And that comes down to worker abuse and choosing fairness and justice over huge profits. We'll talk about that soon in this interview. Another thing that our community is definitely going to deal with again is the Black Lives Matter movement. Because I don't know if you recall, but a lot of our young people protested, surely you fucking saw this, police brutality last year and the year before. We're going to see those again. That is going to be an issue that we see again because largely that system hasn't changed. And the policing culture in America hasn't shifted much. And we certainly didn't get what we wanted when we were protesting for, like, decency. And our local police department actually is sort of on the right side of history on a lot of this as far as the Black Lives Matter movement is concerned. And boy, I am going to talk about this very quickly. As we talk about defunding the police. And I think largely when people say that, what they mean, I think, and certainly what I mean when I make that commentary, I say defund the police, but what I kind of mean is reallocate police funding to reflect the needs of the community. So we don't just show up to every community level problem trying to fix it with a gun or some handcuffs. That's actually, most of the help we need is not that. So that's a real issue that we're gonna have to deal with. So like our local police leadership didn't necessarily want to, comment on other police precincts, and didn't largely through that Black Lives Matter protest season. That was disappointing to me because there were nearby police precincts that murdered citizens. I can think of one now, of course. Elijah McClain was murdered by police officers. And that is a real problem. They showed up with the wrong tools for like a non-problem in that particular story. In Longmont, we're sort of on the cutting edge of reacting to that kind of a problem. And how we've been doing it for years now, actually. And I did a podcast some years ago that was an hour-long conversation with the big boss over there at Longmont Public Safety. And we talked about this thing called the core team. The core team is, it's basically a shift. I believe there's 2 cars that run this way. It's not just cops with guns and whatever. It's one cop, an EMT to solve medical problems, of course, and a licensed clinical therapist. And those 3 partners show up together at scenes, okay? Now, if you're talking about like, let's say it's some person in a park and somebody calls the police on them for whatever reason. Without the core team, we show up with the wrong tools almost no matter what in that situation. Unless that person's literally breaking the law or like literally dangerous, boy, the police aren't that helpful. And they can point the person at resources or whatever. But we do in Longmont, we have the core team show up. And that core team has, of course, more resources. They've got the EMT. Hey, is this person in a bad chemical place, or do they need medical care or transported to medical place to get some type of diagnosis or whatever? Are they healthy? Are they comfortable living, how they are? And then, of course, you've got the licensed clinical therapist that can ask more of like the inner world questions of the people and serve them that way. I think that's a really noble program that we're doing here in Longmont. And I know that there will be discussion soon, probably, about increasing budgets and where the money goes. And there are probably going to be some movements toward upping the budget for our police department, what have you. It's my opinion that if we're going to do that, we need to expand things like the core team and not just like, I don't know, give our cops some fucking SWAT gear or what the fuck ever. I don't know that that's the right answer for us. So those are some of my concerns. Workforce abuse, those are the things that I think our city council people are going to be dealing with. And so that's what motivates how I'm voting. So the 3 people I named are the people I think are, thinking in noble ways that match my own belief system. Even though all 3 of them don't necessarily all believe in the same shit, I believe we'll get good answers with any of those 3 people. Aaron Rodriguez, Talis Salamatian, and Shakita Yarbrough. That's who I'm putting out there for you, if you like. But also vote your heart. You can't really fuck up. We got good people here. All right. That was a big, long, sort of unfunny political diatribe. Excuse me for talking politics, finally. Whatever. I try not to just talk about who I was interested in voting for as we went through this process. The next episode we do is going to be the night before Election Day. So that will be interesting. You can expect me to do some drinking related to that. And then we'll have 2 more episodes. One where we're going to try and interview people who won the election or whatever and maybe congratulate them or whatever. And then we'll have our big season finale. That's sort of the map of the show going forward. We only have a few episodes left. This is number 13, of course. And if the previous way that I recorded this monologue is any evidence, maybe 13 is not the luckiest number. I'm not sure if that information's out there or whatever. But now we're going to have our guest. Now, this fella is running for mayor here in Longmont. We interviewed Tim Waters. He's also running. We didn't get to interview Joan Peck, but those are the 3 people involved. This guy's name is Mr. Greg Harris. and he wants to talk about us. He wants to talk to us about how he can maybe serve our community. So let's hear him out. Seems like a nice gentleman. Boy, he dressed very well for this, which I appreciate. You know, if you're going to go on TV, you might as well wear a jacket, right? So let me throw it, of course, back to past me from like 40 minutes ago, and Mr. Greg Harris.
How you doing?
Nice to see you, sir. Did we get your microphone turned on?
Yeah, I'm all set, Andy. Thank you very much. Are you sure this is a ficus and not a palm?
Well, I'm watering it like a ficus, you know, but it does have palm leaf.
Okay.
Are you a gardener at all?
No. I've killed many, though.
Well, I've been keeping this alive for several episodes.
You know, just when you think you know how to grow a plant, it dies on you. So I don't claim to know anything except how to grow weeds and pull plants.
Well, Mr. Harris, thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure.
That was a very funny intro.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah, I love that part of this art form, just kind of writing that monologue every week based on what I see in the news.
I like watching it. So
thank you very much. Oh, what a kind note. Mr. Harris, we've been talking to people.
Please call me Greg, Andy.
May I?
Yeah, please.
Thank you very much. And you can call me anything you like. I promise I've been called worse.
I like Andy. We'll keep that for now.
Yeah, great. Just don't call me Shirley.
Okay.
We've been talking to people running for office. One of the great first episodes we did was with Brian Bagley, our current mayor, who's not running again, and gave us a very candid and long-form interview. I think we talked for like 45 minutes. Because it was a very revealing kind of inside look at this job, mayor, which, here are my notes on it, seems like it sucks. You can really affect the community, but it pays like shit. As soon as you win, you know, it's politics, so like seems like half of everyone basically hates you or whatever. Mm-hmm. What about being mayor for you makes that bullshit worth it?
I don't know if it is worth it yet. You know, you don't know something until you try it. But I mean,
fair answer.
You know, sit back and watch what's going on in the city, and you can either sit back and gripe, or as Andy would say, bitch. Yeah. You can sit back and bitch all you want, right. But until you jump in and try and do something about it, you know, you don't really have a leg to stand on when it comes to, you know, correcting or criticizing someone else about it. So I've been sitting back and watching this for years now. As you know, I've been here since 1970. Yeah. So sitting, you know, as a kid, you don't watch politics. I am not going to lie to anybody. I haven't watched politics until like the last 10 years of my life. And God knows I didn't want to watch it for the last 10 years either. But you don't sit back and watch what's going on in your town without being concerned. I see there's so many things that just bother me, and I don't know if it's the current city council, but I have no one else to blame, so I'm going right at them. You know, the things they do, I don't like. You know, we talked earlier about the healthy beverage ordinance. I have 2 boys, you know, and when they were little, you know, I'd like to see someone walk up to you in a restaurant and tell, you know, your wife, you know, they're feeding them, she's feeding them or giving them the wrong drink, and see if they walk away with 1 or 2 black eyes, you know. You know, that, you know, so, but I don't think the city council needs to be telling people how to raise their kids right now. Maybe later down the line, but certainly not now. I mean, we have so many things on our plate as far as citizens, and you know, where do you start? There's so many things. You know, every time they do something in the city council, I don't know about it till after it's an ordinance or after, you know, it's a fee. And I realize, you know, I'm lower class, me and my wife, I'm lower class, period. Because like you, I was a musician for years. I played drums, I'm learning banjo now.
Don't hold that against him. All right, listen.
I love
this
music.
Nice man just told us he played banjo. Let's be kind. He's a nice guy. Right?
I'm learning banjo.
Oh, there he is. He's only dabbling.
Yes.
He's only dabbling. He may be hanging out with the wrong crowd, but he's only dabbling.
True.
It's not problematic behavior, guy.
But you sit back and you watch, you know, well, 4 years ago, I saw where it was on the ballot, you know, they wanted to raise water rates. And I voted no, and everybody else did too, because it failed. And I was so proud of my city. I was like, proud of myself too, because I voted against it, and everybody else did, a majority. So I felt like, okay, I'm in the right-leaning, not right, but I'm in the same mindset of everybody in Longmont. Yes. And then I see the city council go back and unilaterally call it a fee and put it on there anyways. You know, if you're going to listen to the people in Longmont, then listen to them. Don't ask them something, then go against what everybody says. And now we have 100,000 people in Longmont. I thought we were at 99, but, you know, What's the difference between another 10? But, in the last 10 years, we've got 10,000 more people, because you were talking about the homeless thing. And, with more population, you're going to have more homeless. It's just the way it is. And I saw a thing in California, I think it was California or Seattle, where they asked this beautiful town, they said, how do you keep the homeless away? And they said, we don't offer anything. And I thought, well, that's really good. That keeps your city really nice and stuff. But what about the other cities around you that still have homeless, and they're going to migrate through? And, just because you ignore the problem doesn't mean it goes away. And as you and I were talking.
That's, I think, the height of cruelty, of course. To think that how you build a community has nothing to do with the most vulnerable people in that community is evil thinking, in my book. In my opinion, the way we treat the most vulnerable people in our community, that is a real window as to who we really are at scale.
Well, definitely a reflection of who you are, or who you want to be.
And what our values are.
Well,
we talk all day about whatever businesses or realtors wanting better deals or more incentives to do something they're going to do anyway, or whatever. We talk about all this bullshit, but then we really overlook something like, rent is incredibly high.
Yes.
And buying a house is out of the question for a lot of people.
Shakita said many times when I've listened to her, she's looked for a house in Longmont and can't find one.
Right.
And to me, that's the most heinous thing, because we have plenty of land. I mean, have you lived in Longmont for a while, Andy?
Since 2009.
Okay, so if you go down 287 from like First Avenue all the way down to Pike Road, there's plenty of places you can, like the apartment complex just down the street, which has businesses underneath and apartments above.
Yeah.
You can have your inclusionary in there, because Longmont has a 12% inclusionary.
Right.
And so you can have the upper class, the lower class. I know that developers like to have the upper floors for the high-end payers,
Sure.
So put the inclusionary in the middle, because the lower levels, you also have the people who want to be, easy access, who have the money and stuff. There's no reason you can't please everybody. And there's plenty of room, and there's also plenty of space between Main Street out to Airport, to grow more houses and stuff. So we have plenty of room to grow. I just want responsible growth. If you're going to put a bunch of houses or apartments in here, you've got Highway 66. That's 2-lane. Now, I've been griping for years about widening that thing, and I found out back in 1957 they actually paid people to move the fences back to do it, but like that train in 2004, it never came.
Ooh, we talk about that train too.
I know, and I don't want to hear any more about a train, because, they took like $128 million or something, and then they spent that. That tax is still being taken out of our can I say, rectum?
We got definitely taken advantage of.
Yeah, and still are.
Nobody seems to deny it.
No,
we can't get out of it.
No, and it would have been another $300 or $400 million just to get it here. So they didn't even take the proper amount the first time, and we were lied to. And I get so tired of that. Right now, we have an ability to actually expand Highway 66. It's being done right now. All we need is the funding. And, once again, city council not doing anything when all they have to do is fund that, and we'd have 4 lanes at least. Not only would it help Longmont, the cities of, Lyons, I love our sister cities and stuff. Lyons and Estes Park, people are always going up and through. And when they drive through our town, they're going to spend money here too.
That's right.
And, I think the best way to, everything falls on everything else. So, we hear about pollution and the Green New Deal. I am not for the Green New Deal. But I am for...
Give us a little definition about that for the people that may not know.
Well, $3.5 trillion the federal funds is one of the deals going through Congress now. And, that money will be a burden on your children, your children's children, and your children's children. If we take care of our problems, our pollution and stuff within each city, I think we can handle it. If every city took care of its own. Right now, we have the cleanest burning oil plants and coal plants and stuff in the world. I mean, we're very leaning towards clean energy and stuff.
Yeah. We have the best version of the old wrong answer.
Everything. And, eventually through capitalism, we'll have the green, the greener world that we're all looking for. Not forced on us, but
I
we
want
will.
to believe that too, because I want to think that like businesses are incentivized to care about the future.
Yes.
But time and time again, we've seen that not play out that way.
Well, that's why you always have to have laws for them. Otherwise, they'll, money's money and greed is greed. But, if we expanded Highway 66, that 4 lanes would immediately cut down on our traffic because it's bumper to bumper during commuting hours. Anyone who's tried to get in and out of town knows that. You cut down on the pollution right there. You cut down on the smog because those cars are not stopping and starting every 5 feet. Anyone who's been I-25 sees that. Yeah. And, you cut down on the carbon monoxide. Right there, it seems. And not to mention, you have the workforce, our middle-class workforce is driving in and out of town because they can't find attainable housing.
Right, that's the kind of the other side of the thing that everyone seems to agree with you on.
Yeah,
This
and you see one thing takes care of another.
Yes, so, yes, and now, as we look at that pattern, I would like to zoom out just a little bit and kind of talk about our average workers.
Yeah.
Now, I know that there's a difference between affordable housing and attainable housing.
Correct.
And attainable housing is essentially geared for people that make 80%
80 to 120 of our median income.
of the median income.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's 80% of the median income is like $59,000.
Mm-hmm.
So that's helpful for that group of people for sure.
Correct.
And I think like we have a lot of people that live under that number, right?
Oh, yeah.
So
You're looking at one of them. Me and my wife both work, and together, combined income, we're below 40,000.
So I would be surprised to find that the people that need the help are actually being helped by that particular idea. Because during the pandemic, during quarantine or whatever, at its height, we were using words like hero, frontline worker. And who we meant were like the people that kept our grocery stores open and functioning. Literal heroes.
Gas station people. I grew up working in gas stations. I know exactly.
So like I'm thinking of my friends at the grocery store at the moment, and those guys can work 40 hours a week, literally risking their health at this point, not just from the pandemic, from people showing up with guns. It is a dangerous job all of a sudden to work at the grocery store.
Agreed.
Okay. Maximum exposure to the community, people being assholes, that's where they're assholes to these people. And they're making 23, 25,000 a year.
Pain is pain.
Of course,
everybody can be in pain, and you share it with anyone you run in contact to. So,
that's true.
You got to see.
We're not trying to compare pain necessarily, but
Correct.
these people worked hard and put their lives at risk to keep those grocery stores open, something that our whole society relied upon. Heroes, we called them, but they make 23, 25,000 a year, and that's if they work every opportunity they get. I don't hear very many politicians talking about where that person can go home at night to sleep. And then they say, oh, homelessness is for, drug addicts and troublesome people or whatever. It's not. It's for people in that position that can barely hold on to life.
Well,
$1,600 a month.
Homeless strikes everyone.
That's right.
But there is a certain group, like I was telling you earlier, I met a gentleman who, he and his dog are living down by my house at one of the grocery stores. And to your credit, I know everybody's name in my grocery store,
Yeah,
you be there, you say hi to everyone, and they're so wonderful, and they do such a great job. And, they do get treated pretty poorly on a regular basis. It's like any job where you deal with the public on a regular basis, you're going to get treated bad, and you're never going to get the credit. But one hello and one good smile goes a long way with those guys. So, let's keep that going too between us and anybody else out there.
That's agreed, yes. But they really were heroic in how they acted, and a lot of them weren't able to pay their rent. Right? So a lot of these guys are having to pay that back rent or whatever. They're in constant threat. If they miss one paycheck, they are not going to make rent.
No, and the rule my best friend, dear friend, my buddy Skip taught me when I was a young man was you pay for rent no matter what. You may not be able to eat, you may not be able to heat it or electricity for lights or anything, but you have a place to live. And when you get down to where you're at the gritty and you still can't afford your rent, then you need help. And I love government programs that help those people. And there's some people that are homeless that don't want to. They want to be, and I don't want to make anybody angry with using the term gypsy. They just want to be freewheeling and be on their own and travel when they want, and they don't want to be in a home and stuff. And I understand that,
I think that's actually, if I may,
Please.
being, one of the people kind of like, I know people in that area.
Yeah.
It is an outcome of a broken system that people like millennials think traveling and living in a car is one of their better options for life. That's because good jobs don't pay well.
No, they don't. Not anymore.
No.
Inflation's coming too. And if you think it's bad now, where do you think we're going to be in a year?
Right.
But let me ask you something. I have a story. A dear friend told me about how in Seattle they had built like 50 condominiums, and it was for the homeless. And they said, okay, we're going to open it up to you. This is just recent. We're going to open it up, and everyone's welcome, except we don't want alcohol. There's no alcohol. There's no drugs. 2 of those condos or apartments filled up. The rest of them stayed empty. So they said, okay, let's try everybody. We'll see if we can contain it and control it. And that thing filled up, den of iniquity. It was, Sodom and Gomorrah. Drugs were rampant, needles everywhere and stuff. And they realized that they weren't addressing the correct problem, which is something you and I were talking about a little bit earlier. What do you think those problems are?
Desperation. Inability to move forward. Necessity for escapism because they're trapped.
Escapism, which causes addiction, right?
But
Correct?
we all do it, of course.
Of course.
But imagine how much more that becomes a necessity in your life when everything is built against you.
Yes.
So,
When you're living on a pile of crap, yeah, you're gonna lean towards drugs and alcohol. You
and
really
of
are.
course, societal abuse of people in the lower class.
Correct.
They don't want to pay you dollars. In America, somehow we got the idea that even if you can't pay your people a living wage, you're a successful business. So we're talking about like supplementing whatever, the people at the grocery store who aren't being paid a living wage. Now, what's the real problem? The real problem is that business is actually capitalizing on workforce abuse. They are underpaying their people. That's not a successful business.
I agree to a point, because I'm all for capitalism. I love businesses. I love all businesses.
Okay.
And so, but when you see something like that, you wonder, is it the unions that are letting that get by? Because I see very strong unions in the school system.
Yes.
They're the strongest union right
But
now.
politicians stood on the neck of workers' unions. They made them seem like the enemy.
In the
Like
very
enemy of-
early unions, yes, unions were, I think, the most important thing. And
but
I still think they are.
I agree
But
they're
I
very
think
important.
some of them are out of control. And does that help? Does that hurt? These discussions you and I are having now, I think, are wonderful, because I think what your show does is bring this stuff up. And until you shine a light on it, it doesn't even get discussed.
Sure.
So
Yeah. I believe that we could be acting better. I don't think I think we're in late stage capitalism. It's not working out anymore. We're at a pivot point as a society. It's time for us to restructure how we're moving.
I agree with that to a point. I mean, I can see capitalism and believe me, I love capitalism. But you see people like Jeff Bezos who actually abuse that. And that,
We agree on that shit.
yeah, and if you're going to abuse it, then my God, you need prison time. That's all there is to it.
Abusers?
You've got a punishment. That's all there is to
He's abusing
it.
millions of people. He's talking about building company towns.
Yes. Yes.
That's the darkness. We don't do that in America anymore.
No,
You
we
know what I mean?
don't. No, we pay people a good wage for a good job.
People are so afraid of socialism because they feel like the government is going to treat them as badly as their boss already does.
Well, I got to say, I hate socialism, so I'm
I
not.
think that might be a little disagreement between us, but
That's okay.
It sounds like
No one
that-
wants a yes man next to him. I mean, things don't get discussed. If you and I are kissing each other's butts, ain't never anything going to progress.
and
So.
I'll bet you'd agree with me if I said that the right answer is balance.
No, I will not. No, yes, of course.
Not
Yeah.
necessarily in the middle of capitalism or whatever.
Yes.
But
Balance.
between opposing ideas, they both have merit, usually, especially political ideas. Hey, grandma should be able to go to the hospital. Hey, we ought to be able to.
You just sent her to bed. Now you're going to talk about her behind her bed.
Oh, yeah, we don't like grandma's stay.
Yeah,
She'd be offended, of course.
Is she going to finish that popcorn? Can I have some of that? But I agree with that balance, and that brings us back to the city council.
Yes.
Because I think that place needs much balance.
Okay.
I don't think there's any balance now when everybody votes the same way as far as like putting taxes on people. I don't like taxes. I think we have enough revenue in this city that if it's done right, capitalism, that it could bring in more revenue. I think the airport's a perfect example. Now, I know one of my opponents wants to have electric planes. By God, someday we will. But right now, there's probably 2 of them, and you can fly to Sterling, and then you got to sit there and wait for it to recharge. And, there's another one in Europe that's like, $500,000 or $1 million. It's ridiculous. It's just not there yet.
There's some answers that really, I think, do need to be solved by the free market.
I agree.
Something like that makes sense to me.
Well,
Should they be incentivized to move away from what they're already making money doing? Yeah.
Well, yeah, but that's capitalism, Someone's going to say, I can build a better electric, solar panel, and then they do it.
Yeah.
That's capitalism, and I love that.
We give the tax write-off to the guy working on the future instead of maintaining the past. That makes sense to me, too. Business does largely what they're incentivized to do. Voters do what they're afraid of.
And see, I like that, throwing ideas at each other. That's how things are. That's how things are done, and that's how they should be done. Right. I saw the city council recently voted first vote on, and I think it was unanimous on raising taxes in Longmont on utilities. So raise utilities 12% next year, 14 the year after that, and 16 the year after that. That's like 40% in 3 years. Yeah, you think people in my bracket are, going to be able to afford that? No. I mean, thank God both my kids just, the youngest one got out of college, but they both went to Front Range Community College, which I love.
Yeah.
We have a great college here, and then they both went to CU, which, it's a big university, and I never went to college. High school was as far as I got. So I went into the workforce immediately, and, the last, I'd say, 50 years I've been working, 50? Yeah, 50 years. Paper route as a kid, moved here from Chicago back in 1970, and then from there, a couple more years with it, then went to work at the gas stations, and while I was working at the gas station, I started laying carpet and doing roofing. I've done construction for over 35 years and stuff, so I understand how the business side where it comes to construction and stuff goes and stuff. And I think Longmont could really be, I think Longmont is a great town. And I want to keep that. I want that. I like walking down the street and saying hi to someone in it and getting a smile. Even if we don't agree on everything, we can still be polite and have a great love of our community and people in it. And I want to
believe each other's intentions.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I don't see why that needs to change with growth. But like I said, responsible growth. And I haven't been seeing that over the last 4 years. I mean, my opponents say they want this and they want that. Well, what have they been doing for the last 4 years? We got 100,000 people in this town. You tell me we can't have a new mayor every time? We have to recirculate the same people on that city council? I don't believe that for a second. Even if I'm not elected, I hope to God the next election brings in, 30 more people, that haven't been in politics before. And, they're saying, oh, he doesn't know anything about politics. Well, I've run plenty of board of directors. I'm on a couple now. As president on one for 6 years. I'm just a trustee on another. Nonprofits, of course, and stuff, which I think are wonderful. And a lot of my stuff, during COVID, I heard how they were helping out during COVID. I've been doing this volunteer thing for 20 years. And, once you start doing it, it's kind of a selfish thing. You feel good about it. So it's, helping people is a wonderful thing. And if we all help people in our community, it's not like I'm all over the place doing volunteer stuff. It's like a 10-block radius. And, widows and widowers call me and stuff. When it snows, I plow, a couple of blocks, because they can't, I see them out there, 7 in the morning trying to shovel, it's like, just run an extra block or something with the, I got a snow plow that walks itself. So it's just.
Well, but you seem like a good neighbor, and thank you for helping your community that's around you.
Well, I think if we all do, if everyone in Longmont does that for the little places that we are throughout the community, it's going to stay a wonderful town.
That's true.
And if we can keep people, if we can put more money in people's pockets, then, these people are going to help these homeless people. That's how these homeless people are taken care of, is by the community. And, it.
I think, and I agree with that, I think when we move through the government to solve those problems, I think that is us as a community, at least on the local level, that is us pooling our resources and working. That's what government is.
It is, yeah. And, on a smaller scale.
It gets broken at the level.
It does. It does. It gets convoluted and it doesn't work, and money gets lost and stolen and everything else. But in a small town, its own community, Longmont can take care of Longmont. A lot of I hear people say, "Oh, we're Little Boulder." I never want to be a Little Boulder.
I would live in Boulder if I wanted to live in Boulder.
Yeah, exactly. I love Longmont, and it brings us to the mask mandate, and the other mandates. Boulder can do whatever they want with Boulder. Yeah. But because we're in Boulder County, they want to inflict it on us too. And I don't think that's right. You know, you see these little kids in school, and I've seen the data when it says, you know, look to the science and stuff, and science says that these little kids are not germ factories. Now, if there's a little kid that has, you know, underlying things or something, the mom and dad can definitely say, I want my child to wear a mask. But if the other parents say, I don't want my child wearing a mask, then they should be listened to. And that's where, you know, I know we don't all agree on that, you know, and stuff, but there's a conversation that should be happening instead of just, you know, shoving it in people's face and saying, this is what you're going to do.
Now, that I agree with. We ought to be having reasonable conversations about it.
I agree.
Yeah.
Another thing I would like to bring up, and I've been talking way too much, please.
No, you haven't, man. This show's about you.
Oh, thanks.
We're here to talk to him, right? We fucking talk every week. Did you catch the first show?
I like that, though.
I talk plenty. We're really here to investigate you and your ideas, of course.
But, you know, there's so many things that the city council does that no one in the town knows about. And, you know, if you watch one of the meetings, it's very mind-numbing because all you get are the numbers, and they don't tell you what each of those things are. Yeah. You know, and if people could say, oh, okay, this is going to be about, you know, people driving up and down Main Street or drag racing instead of dash 22, 103, 45, you know, yeah. You need to know what they're talking about. And they just blow through like 7 or 8 of those things. And it's just mind-numbing watching them, which maybe that's what they want. I don't think so. I think...
I've never tried to watch one sober, but I've seen a few. It's horrible.
Maybe that's my problem. I should try a beverage.
Try and roll a J with me sometime.
All right. But, you know, I think it could be, you see a city bill come out, utility bill, and inside that bill is a little bulletin telling you what's going on. There's no reason they can't have everything they're going to vote on every month on that thing so people know what's going on and they can call and say something, you know. They said about that healthy beverage ordinance. Oh, we heard from, you know, all these people, 150 people out of 100,000. I don't think that's hearing from anybody except their buddies.
And I do, of course, let me stand with you on that issue. That's a fucking silly bill. We made fun of it on this show when it was on the TV. Remember we talked about it? It was a little silly, okay? Even though, like, whatever, here's a note, parents. You really aren't doing a great job keeping your kids healthy, by the way. You really aren't. That's why somebody feels like they should help. Your kids are dying of, like, diabetes and shit. Like, that's not, you know what I'm saying? Just saying. You do need the help. You're not doing a great job.
But that's only some of them. Not all of them.
Some of them, but goddamn, the numbers look awful. Have you seen the child obesity rates?
No, I haven't.
That's not an accident.
But we could,
because food companies are taking advantage of us and parents aren't paying attention.
Well, and I wish I could agree, but I don't know the numbers, so I'm not going to disagree either. Okay. So what I will do is say, you know, if you're going to punish businesses for that, because now you're forcing businesses to carry a product that they normally don't inventory. And if it's perishable, like non-sugared milk, which powdered milk expires. So, you know, you're forcing every restaurant in Longmont to carry that.
And
so it doesn't not just, it is, it doesn't not just hurt anybody, it hurts all our businesses, like you say, just got through COVID.
Yes, I agree.
So, I mean, we should be helping them. It really is. If you want to do something, why don't we educate people,
yeah,
you know?
If it was 2012, we could be talking about that. We might have had time to talk about that. But nowadays, I just don't think it's the right time to be bothering with it. I stand with you on that.
I agree.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about business post-COVID.
Yeah.
As a capitalist, I would assume that there's good meat here for us to talk about. How can we, if we're thinking in the frame of capitalism, which that's where we're looking through your perspective.
Please.
How can we help businesses, or should we help them? If we're capitalists, shouldn't they help themselves by being clever business people? How do we get out in front of this problem?
We can help businesses. I mean, I had a couple of businesses. I do property management. Mm-hmm. And a couple of them, well, let's say this. The leases that my businesses had allowed them to tell us if they wanted us to use their security, first month, last month security deposit, to help them through COVID. We didn't say it was for COVID. We just knew if something came up that we could use that, and we asked them, do you want us to do this? They gave us their permission. We used it for their property taxes, their utilities. You know, the city could have put a moratorium on utilities, but they didn't.
No, they didn't.
Everybody still had to pay the utility, even though they weren't in there. And you know, around here, you know, $16 a square foot up to $19, that's like $4,000 a month for a place you can't even stay open. I disagree vehemently as far as closing businesses. You could have let those businesses stay open. They could have wore a mask. If you didn't want to go in there, don't go in there. No one's telling you have to. But to close the business was wrong. You know, I think they could have left those businesses open. There's a bike shop not too far from here. Have you ever seen more than 2 or 3 people in a bike shop at a time? I don't see hordes of people running in there at once like Walmart. But Walmart stayed open and sold bikes. Well, you closed. Well, they closed. Sorry, Andy.
Walmart
Now
has
you,
more powerful lobbyists.
yes, they do. But this is a little town. In the little town, and Jared Polis were the ones who decided to close those businesses. Mm-hmm. And I think that was wrong. You don't pick and choose what business should survive. And like I said, the people will choose where they want to go and what they want to do. If you don't want to go into a business, don't go in. But our leases allowed them to use those security deposits to help them through the COVID. Mm-hmm. So when we came back from it, they hit the ground running. They weren't buried in red. They were almost in the black. So, and then we let them gradually pay it back. Like you were saying, a lot of these places said, we want that money right away. As soon as the moratorium was off, they wanted their money. And who was going to just, if you don't mind me saying, crap $4,000?
All of a sudden.
Yeah, it's just not happening. And
I couldn't pay it last month. Now I have 10 times that much?
Yes, it just, is it stupid?
It's a rule made by somebody not in that situation.
Exactly. So these, rules are being made by people who have no idea what the rest of society is going through. And believe me, I am on the bottom of society. I've been there for a long time. I'm happy. It's okay. We get by and everything's fine. But I see other people struggling that are in lower income, and I also see the middle income struggling. But a well-rounded city has upper, medium, middle, and lower income families. All of them now are doing well. All of them have housing. All of them, have jobs.
Yeah, and they all contribute an essential part to the community.
Correct.
A lot of those low-income people, those are your artists, too.
Yes, they are.
They actually create the culture you say you're so proud of in Longmont. Mm-hmm. They're part of what do it.
You're absolutely right. So we get back to the middle income, because that's where the housing is the shortest. Now, are there lower income housing? Yeah, but the middle income are buying those up, but the way that we have no middle attainable housing is driving the cost up for those lower income houses, which is stupid. We have a perfect example what not to do. All you have to do is look a little bit west, and what we don't want to do. You don't want to put a fence around your city and say we're not for growth, because all that does is drive up everything. You go in the city, which we will not name, a little Baltimore thing. And so, but you see what's happening there is it's driving everything up, and wait till inflation hits them. Then they're really going to feel it. But
you're right, of course, and they've long had that opinion. Mm-hmm. I moved here after touring through the area a few times in the late 2000s. Mm-hmm. The reason I picked Longmont was because Boulder was growing terribly, and I knew all that extra business steam was going to shoot out to the surrounding communities.
Yep.
Put my money on Longmont. Years later, we saw a great arts community plus the entrepreneurial scene grow together. And now we're kind of starting from scratch in a lot of ways.
I do love the art. You can walk up and down Main Street and you see the art. It's just wonderful. I love that. And the artists get to put their stuff there for a year, and then they pull it out and someone else gets a chance. That's a great program.
That's right.
But
and a losable part of our community too, if we're not watching.
I agree. Yeah. And so, and as far as business building and stuff, Main Street's great, but we have streets, Kimbark and both sides of Main Street that could grow. Yes, and as far as businesses that went out, we lost a lot. I bet we lost 50% of our businesses. I'm just guessing. I don't know the numbers, but
lost a lot.
This as well.
We used to have like 13 breweries.
Yes. Yeah.
And we don't have that many now.
I think the city should take that general fund and they should help, incentive-wise, but, helping them get into those buildings. If we could get them into the empty buildings, say, we'll give you first month and last month, or first month at least to get you started. You come up with the last month, we'll give you the first month assistance. There used to be a home assistant, a homeowner's assistance, so they gave you the down payment assistance program. Yes. Somehow they ran that thing into the ground, whoever was running it, and it's not there anymore, which was stupid, because people who couldn't get into a house, the lower income, you may have affordable housing everywhere, but doesn't mean people can still get into it.
That's right.
Without that down payment assistance, they can't get into that house.
That's right.
Because Mr. Banker says, sorry, we need at least 10 grand or a certain percent of that home. Mm-hmm. But
unwilling to restructure loans.
Yes.
Through the pandemic, didn't it seem like lenders should have said, whatever your mortgage is, I'm going to take this year that you're in the pandemic, and I'm going to lift that away and put it at the end of your loan.
Yes.
I'm still going to get my money.
Yes.
You pay me the interest that you would have paid. I don't actually lose money. I'm still making that.
That's
interest.
A brilliant idea. I love that.
It's coming from a fucking idiot. So, like, it seems like I shouldn't be the first guy saying this, but, like, Jesus wasn't that easy. But, like, of course, everyone has thought about it maybe, but it's not part of the national conversation.
No, because
Big Daddy don't want that.
That's, banks don't want you to say something intelligent. So, yeah, I agree with you
And we
100%.
bless our local bankers. Our local banks are nice folks. Mostly talking about larger problems.
Yes, I agree.
All right, so I've kept you for so long. Thank you so much for being on this show.
It was a joy to be here.
It was honestly.
And after I'm elected, Greg Harris for mayor of Longmont, I would come back many times as you want.
If you do win, please come back, because the next week I'm going to be trying to interview whoever does win that position, and just sort of like whatever, celebrate with them.
It would be a joy.
Well, it would be a wonderful joy to have you back.
Thanks for endorsing me. I really appreciate that. If you didn't hear Andy in the beginning of the program.
Yeah, I didn't want to endorse anybody because obviously we, as a community, at least as far as this show, we haven't met everybody. So we haven't got to sit down with this nice gentleman. Seems like a great guy. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. And, elected or not, thank you for being willing to serve the community.
Thank you very much, Andy.
appreciate it.
I think you have a great thing going here. I hope it just takes you to the top.
I wouldn't even know what that looked like. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.